Well, hello, it's Jewel here. Welcome to the program. So glad to have you with me in the group. If you are seeing me and you are hearing me fine, just give me a shout out. You can give me a hi in the comments. That would be fantastic. Have so much good stuff for you today. And we are going to go ahead and jump right in. By the way, you can always comment to me. You can always ask me questions. I have a couple of windows open, so I'll be looking in a couple of different places, but you can absolutely talk to me and I will make sure to be super responsive. Two-pronged approach tonight. Part one, what we're going to do is we are going to talk to Patty because she landed a new job within about 6 weeks. And we want to walk you through exactly what happened for her to successfully do that. More importantly, for you to do the same thing in your career and your life. Part two is Q&A. Ask me anything about job search. I have consistently been able to get people placed in the roles that they want. And I'm talking week in, week out, during COVID, during the heat of summer, all throughout the year. If you can see and hear, say hi in the comments below so that we know. If you're excited about what you're about to find out, drop I'm excited in the comments. A couple other things that I want to make sure that we get to before I go ahead and introduce Patty. I want to make sure and deliver value to you in the form of information that's applicable, that you can put into action in order to move your career forward today. So ask me about your resume, maybe what could be wrong with it, what exactly is not working. Ask me about networking, what needs to happen in order to make that really pop the way you need it. Ask me about interviewing. What's the question that's causing you to be nervous or come up short? Ask me about salary, especially if you need a salary increase along with your next new job. What do you want to know about salary? How do you calculate what your salary requirements even are? What do you do when the salary question comes up, as in, too early in the very first conversation when you're having a phone interview? For everybody who stays till the end, I might have something for you that I'm quite confident you will want to take advantage of at zero cost to you. Let's go ahead and dive right on in. Let me introduce you to Patty. This is Patricia Rodriguez Vega. And I'm going to let her start off by telling us her good news. So what do you have to share with us?
I got the job. So excited.
Awesome. What is your title and when do you start?
My title is Senior Manager, Brand Strategy and Communications, and I've actually already started. I just completed my first week today.
Awesome. So tell us about the whole time frame, as far as like when you and I got together to do our work until you landed and started the job.
Yes, so the time frame was eight weeks, so 2 months. We talked in middle of started talking middle of April, and I got the job offer middle of June.
Perfect.
Yes.
Tell us what was going on with your job search in the first place, or probably more importantly, what was like not going on that you needed to have happen?
So, I was doing the endless job applications, sending, or my resume, uploading it. And I was getting nowhere. I was just running into this roadblock where, I was getting a handful. I mean, I sent over 150 applications out, just to give you an idea.
Mm.
And I got a handful of interviews, and sometimes I wasn't even able to make it past the recruiter and make it into, just having actual conversations. So it was a little bit of a difficult journey from the beginning.
There are a lot of lessons in this right off the bat, friends. So first of all, what did it feel like for you churning out 150 applications? Because not everything is like a one-click apply, right? So
No.
what was that like?
It was very time consuming, and you understand that, job search is a full-time job, right? That's what you hear. But I don't think that I ever experienced it as much as I did this time. And being in this situation, and I do have to say that I was pretty new to this situation, the job search. And given that I've been in my industry for 20 years, thankfully I have been lucky in the past not to be in this situation, but all of this was super new to me. So having to understand where to start, how to do it, how to be effective, how to do the any kind of networking. I mean, it was just a lot of work, a lot of hours being put in, from getting up early in the morning to closing the computer down at the end of the day. It almost felt like a work day, but just with no results.
How long had you been at it and, kind of dealing with that no results and being stuck in that space?
8 months.
8 months. Oh
eight
my
months
goodness. Okay. Nothing that we ever want to repeat ever, ever again. All right.
Never
So
ever.
then tell us about how did you find the opportunity or the opportunity find you? What happened there?
So the opportunity found me, and I think this is going to be very key, because my role, my job was not publicly published. So this is someone coming to me and finding me, and the first things with the few people, and I can talk a little bit more about the other people that I spoke with after I got my job offer. The first thing that they would say was, or said was, "I'm so impressed with your profile." And to me, that's a huge win, because there's so much noise out there. They're looking there's a lot. This wasn't it wasn't published. It was very much them looking for the right candidates, and to be able to stand out there. I mean, that speaks a lot, to have someone come to you and say, "I was very impressed with your background, your LinkedIn profile." And I do have to add too that the industry I'm in is something that I haven't done before. It's within my field of interest, but it's a totally different type of work. And for them to be interested, and for me to have caught their eye, says a lot about what my LinkedIn profile was able to communicate.
This is amazing because, you and I have talked obviously before today, and it's news to me that the opportunity was unpublished. I don't think I realized that from our conversation. So they just directly came to you based on the profile. Now,
Yes.
here's one point, friends, that I really want to emphasize, and this is what I work with people on, is framing that story. And the story appears in multiple places. It's your resume, it's your LinkedIn. If we do an executive bio for you, whatever it is, you're still the same person on the resume, LinkedIn, bio, all of these places. And the story has to be framed correctly. Now, the way that we framed it for Patty, you hear what she's talking about. Someone reached out to her for this role. That is also critically important. And one of the things that I work with people on is, everybody knows what to do with the resume, right? We've kind of been told, like, since the 80s, oh, go put yourself out there, right? I mean, that may mean a lot of different things, but that's kind of the slogan when it comes to resumes. LinkedIn needs to function as the flip side of that coin. LinkedIn is meant for you to sit there with your presence, with your story, have all that be correct, but it's meant for you to sit there and draw the folks in. Resume you push out, LinkedIn draws the people in. So then, Patty, I recall one of the key problems was how to present that story. So, what was the trouble that you were having with that in the first place?
So, getting my accomplishments grounded into talking about what I could bring to the table, and being able to do that on paper and verbally was a big, big challenge for me, because there was so much that I had to say. And when I had the opportunity, it just all just came out. And it wasn't really giving a sense of, accomplishments, but more so just a lot of words out there. And I wasn't able to really focus, because some of these interviews are very limited. They give you the first 30 minutes, and you have to sell yourself within those first 30 minutes. And it's like, well, where do you start? Where do I pick? And then, I ended up just throwing it all out there. And that was my biggest challenge.
And then, so what do you feel like we did with the story that worked for you, or what do you feel like we did that helped you structure those answers and not kind of have this whole waterfall coming out of your mouth?
So the way my accomplishments, the way you outline my accomplishments on my resume, pinpointing the key areas of the most relevant, the most successful ones, the way you laid that out told that story. So by the time that I was getting in front of interviewing, they already had that part of the story. So now I was able to, within that short time frame, able to focus on what I could bring to the table, what my talent was versus having to review my history and go into those specifics because they had that in front of them. And I also just speaking with you and taking your advice, using some of those examples and expanding on them versus talking about all of them, was just going in there and pinpointing a couple. As you can see on my resume, let me tell you more about it, and then just go into more of the specifics.
Yes, and this is so important as well because a lot of times, I think one of the mistakes that people make is when it comes to an interview, whether it's phone interview, in-person Zoom, whatever, what happens is in our minds, we're trying to think of like basically everything, right? Because it's our life, we know the story, and we got to tell this, we got to tell that. That's what we think we need to do. That's not really what you need to do. One of the purposes of the resume is to give structure to your conversation. And so when you're interviewing, the interview is tighter. When you're interviewing, you don't have to remember. You can talk right off your resume. Allow the resume to remind you of the things that you want to say. And it's interesting that you talk about this because a lot of times when I work with people, the first consultation that you and I did for the hour, whatever it was, a lot of people say, wow, that felt like my interview. And I say, good, because I want you to start to bring those accomplishments and achievements, like what you're talking about, bring those back to the forefront of your mind. So I encourage you during that consultation, remember this or that, or you might say something and I say, well, let's stop and tell that story for a minute. It's best to work all those things out with me and then get it on paper. Then when you get in front of whomever, yeah, you can point right to the resume because here again, the whole story. I distilled it down to 2 lines with some great numbers, but that's for you to talk about some more. So it really helps you to not get into the interview throwing everything out of your brain, everything out of your mouth, but it makes your interview really, really structured, which I love it. I feel like in your case, you had that through line, right? Right from the resume into the interview. Okay, so take us to the interview. I'm sure there were a few highlights, but is there something that you think just clinched it for you in the interview?
It is. So, the famous or infamous, I should say, tell me about yourself.
Oh,
And you and I talked a lot about that question and how to respond. And sure enough, I did get that question. And the best advice that you gave me and what I now, take with me is basically you're right. They don't want to know about you, your interests, your hobbies. That's not really what they're asking, right?
right.
They really want to see how you're going to answer, that question efficiently, and how you're going to tie that back to the job description. And that's exactly what I did. I started off the question with, well, this is what you're looking for, and let me tell you what I've done, and let me tell you what I've
Yes.
accomplished. And I will always remember that because that's how my interview started, and it just went from there. It just flowed from that point.
Before that, did you find that tell me about yourself was like this hard question or this anxiety producing
It was
question?
very much because it's like some of the people that I had talked to would talk to me about personal things and would explain themselves that way. And and you start to play a little bit of a mind game. It's like, do they really want to know more about me, or are they really looking to see how I'm going to be answering this question and how quickly I'm going to be able to jump right in and talk about my experience? What it was more of that guessing game. And when you rule those things out and basically just say, I'm not going to talk about the personal piece, I'm just going to dive right in and focus and be very focused with my answer. That just cleared up so many mind games in my head.
I love it. It's so important to have your head clear, right?
Yes.
Because our brains, we can think about literally 1,000 things.
Yes.
Probably 999 of them are wrong, or not what the person asked you, or not what
Yes.
you're there to concentrate on. But our brains just go, and this happens to everybody in any situation where, like, basically we're on the spot, which the interview can feel that way. I mean, it should be a two-way conversation, but it can feel like sometimes, you're under those hot police lights. And the thing I love about what you're saying is that your answers were structured, organized, you knew what you wanted to say going in. And obviously, they responded well to that. Tell us about your interview path, how many people you met with, how long did all of that take?
It took 2 months. I started to talk with them mid-May and got the offer, I'm sorry, 1 month and got the offer in June, mid-June. And I had 5 total interviews,
Wow.
and 3 of those were with my now boss. One was in person and the rest were video conference. And it was with, director and VP level that I was meeting with during this interview. So again, it was the same conversations and the same kind of coaching and structure that I was putting into each one. And even though I did talk to my hiring manager 3 different times, each time I came in with the same mindset, basically just thinking this is the first interview, this is how I'm going to structure it, this is how I'm going to present myself, and I handled that pretty much with the other 2 people as well.
So, friends, this is important. This is one of the reasons why one area where I work with you, I call master the meeting, because Patty had 5 interviews for the same position. And you have to go in fresh every single time. You have to know the person that you're going in to speak to pretty much every single time. And you very likely have to bring some different or additional facet of yourself to the table every single time. And so mastering the meeting is about going into the meeting, knowing what it is you want to present, knowing what it is you want to emphasize. Now, Patty is at a level, and a lot of you friends are at a level such that, you shouldn't be expecting to go on an interview and you're sitting there like a bump on a log answering 20 questions. That's not what it's about. It needs to be about you coming in and demonstrating your expertise in action, in examples, giving recommendations, based on XYZ project that you just happened to do last year with your employer. Then you say to the interviewer, have you all thought about this same approach, X, Y, and Z approach? At your level, friends, that's what they're expecting you to come in and do. None of you in this group are entry level or anything like that. You're all experienced. So the interview is not solely about, having the internet answers to the top 20 interview questions. That's not what it is. Sure, I will talk to you about, tell me about yourself. I will talk to you about, how to answer the question about salary requirements, but beyond those fundamentals, the interview training that we go over for mastering the meeting is going to be before every interview that you have, so that you can lay out the strategy for that meeting. That's the way that works. So what can you tell us about how you felt about salary? How did you feel about your ability to get what you want and you deserve? Share that process with us.
Sure.
And is this an improvement over your last salary? So talk about that.
So of course, just sharing that I did have that employment gap, I did have that concern and understanding, how is that going to work against me? And I did have a lot of concerns around that. And a lot of it had to do also with the things that I wasn't communicating in my old resume kind of helped also to push a little bit more of that concern, because I wasn't telling the full story. So once you laid things out after our conversations, and I looked at all my accomplishments and I reiterated all of them during these interviews, I felt much more confident to basically come back and say, well, yes, the gap wasn't even a focus, honestly. I think there was 1 or 2 questions around it, and that was addressed. And basically the salary is so much better. And I mean so much better than my last
Give
job.
us a hint. Give us a hint.
It's just let's just say it's a pretty surprisingly better amount that I wasn't honestly expecting.
Wonderful.
And and it was amazing to see that, because you do have, again, those concerns, but all of that is just basically just really looking at, again, the accomplishments and you yourself benefiting from that story that's in front of you. visually, and being able to communicate that as well when you are in these interviews, then obviously feel more confident to say this is where I should be with my salary.
I think this is so great because you're once again bringing it all the way back to story, which is exactly where we started. And so here's another important point, friends. Patty had a gap in her timeline. And I know a lot of you are concerned about that.
Mhm.
So here's the reality. First of all, you're not the only person in the world with a gap. Probably the interviewer had a gap too. So that is the human condition. So don't let the gap get you down. But I really want to zero in on some of the key lessons that we're learning from this story, because from Patty's story, because what she's really talking about is, we solidified and laid out the accomplishments in the very beginning. That's the resume, that's LinkedIn. She carries that into the interview. Then when it comes time to talk about salary, she's able to confidently say, well, just last year, I accomplished blankety blank and the improvement was whatever percent. That's what, justifies a salary package that I'm asking for. So you ask for salary based on the value that you can deliver. That's what's important. Salary is not something that comes from like your personal needs and the things that you have going on at home. We all have that, friends. We're all adults. We all have spouses, kids, bills to pay. So that's never going to be a reason that you should be paid. You should command the top of the salary range based on what it is you can come in and do for that employer. And you know what you can come in and do for that employer because you just did it at your last job or whatever the examples are that you want to talk about. So the story is always going to be important. It's going to carry you through from the resume all the way to mastering the meeting, all the way to commanding that salary. Really, really important lesson. So tell us about I know you just started, but still, you and your family have been talking about it. The whole household's happy. So tell me about how does everybody feel and is everybody excited in your
We
house?
are super excited. I mean, honestly, being in this position and for this long, and there's circumstances that brought you here, right? Mainly COVID. That's very stressful. All of it's super stressful to be going through all of that. And once you start to, once I started this process with you, I immediately felt that this was going to be in a positive, this was going in a positive way. I felt the relief. I felt, basically I know I made the right decision, and obviously each conversation we were having just made that even more true each time. And that starts to kind of feel less stressful. And being able to be in this position now after so many months, it's like amazing. It feels great because I don't have to worry about that. Now I can sit here and just be more, just spend more time with my family instead of having to sit here and get up early in the morning, start looking for jobs, close the computer, and then just be drained from it. It's like that's not there anymore, obviously, because now it's like now, we're things are where they need to be and where they should be, and it makes everybody feel great.
So was this project that we did, was it worth it?
Oh my God, yes.
Tell
Honestly,
us
and
why.
because it just you've been doing this for a long time, and you're dedicated yourself to do this, and you're very good at it. And I think that sometimes we put ourselves in this position that we can handle it or we can do it ourselves. I'm not a resume writer. I mean, that's not what I do. Yeah, I have work, I have jobs, I have accomplishments, but being able to pull that in. And I think one thing that you said was, being able to pull yourself out and see it from a different angle is very difficult to do when you're doing it for yourself. So I think that was really key, to be able to share those things with you and then have the output come back and say, amazing. I never ever would have thought of writing it this way. I never would have ever thought of telling my story this way. And I think that is so effective. And I think that that's something that people should realize, and understand that, I tried to do it on my own, it didn't work, it's okay, but that's not what I do. That's not my field of expertise. And when you and I started working together and you were asking the right questions, and it helped me even to get out things that I hadn't thought about. and accomplishments that I had never thought about telling a story. And when you put those on paper, it's like, okay, I honestly never would have written it that way or talked about it that way. And I think that seeing it from that perspective was very helpful.
Oh my goodness, Patty, thank you so much for
Of
sharing this
course. Thank
story.
you.
I think that your path, where you started is like so many other people, which is why I wanted you to come on and talk to us. So I hope, friends, that there are elements of this story that you see in yourself. And I really want you to have that message of hope. And I don't mean like kumbaya in the clouds hope. I mean, it's a real possibility that let's get your story together. Let's get your people together who you're talking to. Let's get you mastering that meeting. And just like Patty did during COVID, yes, you can land a position in 6 weeks. She's here to talk about it. The exact same thing can happen with you. You have seen me do live streams before. Patty is not the only one. This is not an exception. This is the rule, friends, and this can be the rule for you. Patty, thank you for sharing your
Thank you.
story. I most definitely appreciate it. You gave us a little piece of yourself, and we are so, so thankful. And you and I will keep in touch about how great everything is going at the job and everything else, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. All righty, friends, we're going to say bye-bye to Patty, and we are going to go into Q&A. So there are a couple of things that I actually want to, first of all, make sure to offer you. And so one of the things that is going to be important is that I want to make sure that, we're able to do a quick game plan call, which is free. And I want to be able to tell you, exactly what needs to happen to improve your resume. Why? Just like Patty just talked about, the resume is your entire through line. It's what makes the difference. So, yes, it's where we start, but it's where you're going to finish because ultimately, you are interviewing and looking for a job so that you can make that money. What I'm telling you right now, and what Patty just talked about, is how structuring the resume the right way in the first place is the foundation for someone to find you on LinkedIn. And when I say resume, I'm talking about the story. The story is the same on the resume, LinkedIn bio, wherever we put it, but it's the foundation. So Patty's role was unpublished, friends. She just talked about the hidden job market, which so many of you ask me about. By the way, we are going into Q&A. So if you have questions for me, you can go ahead and you can drop them in the comments now. But the story is the foundation. The story is the springboard. So let's do a quick game plan call, which is free. This is what I want to offer you so that I can tell you exactly what needs to happen in order to improve your resume. Make sure that your story is being told the right way. And most importantly, make sure that you get the level of responses that you need. So if the game plan sounds right for you, you can comment game plan below. I'll reach out or my team will reach out. Something that I think is so important for you to understand is that I don't spend, a whole lot of time on theory. I actually do and deliver services for you that are completely done to cut your job search time in half, just like it happened for Patty, a month, 6 weeks. That's the rule. That's not the exception. So the brass tacks, this is what I actually do for you and hand to you finished. The resume, the LinkedIn. There are many other portions of this, which I'm not exactly here to talk about that right now. But what's important is that you can get these things done. I want to make sure that they're done for you the right way. The place to start is, let's take a look at where your resume is right now. Let's see if I can go ahead and audit that resume for you. And I'm going to do this for you for free. I'm going to do it for you privately. Just put game plan in the comments. Let's talk about where you are and what needs to happen in order to improve that story. That story is the foundation and the driver for everything that comes after, including how much salary you are going to command. You want to be scraping the bottom of the salary range, barely getting paid? Or do you want to be like what Patty said, with a significant, surprising increase over what she was making last time? Let's go ahead and go into Q&A right now. So what are the problems that you're actually facing in your job search right now? Ask me about your resume, ask me about networking, ask me about interviewing. What's the question that's causing you to be nervous or come up short? You can ask me about salary, because salary is so critically important. Ultimately, you need a job, you need the salary. That's what needs to happen so that you can have the better life for you and your household and your family. All right, I need to hop over to my email to see the questions, because I actually got some questions a little bit earlier today. All right, so first up, this is from Monica. Monica is asking, I'm here, I'm going to paraphrase this. Monica, you wrote me a lot, but I'm going to paraphrase this. So fundamentally, the question is, Jewel, is the one-page rule still in effect? This is what I'm hearing, but I have 24 years of experience and it's not all going to fit onto a page. I don't know if this is acceptable or if this is not acceptable. Okay, so this is an interesting question and I'm going to talk about why. Pretty much everybody in this group is pretty experienced. This is not really a group for entry-level folks. There may be, some of you in here, I understand that. But most of the conversations are around experienced folks. So yeah, 24 years of experience, it's pretty typical. Now, good question, because, I'm going to say back in the 80s, around that time, yeah, the one-page resume was absolutely the rule. And that's probably what you heard, for a long time up through today. So it's evolved, okay? There was a time when it did have to be a page, and you better not have a page 2. You better not have education on page 2. Forget about volunteerism, none of that. Nobody wanted to see any of that. Well, that's evolved. The resume can be longer. Now, with a caveat, the resume needs to be longer and you need to be actually telling a story. You need to be actually saying something significant. You still can't have just education on page 2 or anything like that. So when you have experience that warrants the length of the resume, when you have accomplishments that warrant the length of the resume, yes, you can go on to 2 pages. So that's perfectly fine now. Wouldn't go any longer than that unless you're in medicine or academia. Sometimes I will write a CV, curriculum vitae, and that can just be, as long as a dissertation, literally. But for most of you, you're going to be using a resume, and 2 pages is fine. 24 years of experience, yeah, you're not going to be able to squeeze that onto a page and tell the story filled with accomplishments that you need to tell. All right, good question. Let me go back to the email. All right. This is from Jared. All right, Jared is asking, this is very simple. Is there a proper way to answer, tell me about yourself? Yeah, so let's go through it. Patty talked about it a little bit, so let's extract from the lessons that she gave us. So here's what the answer to tell me about yourself is not. The answer is not personal, all right? You're not supposed to go back to the day you were born, graduated from high school, or graduated from college. That's not it. You're not talking to your friend at happy hour. You're not on a first date, literally telling the person about yourself. That's a personal situation. This is 101% professional. So even though the question is, tell me about yourself, it's a little bit deceptive, because the full question, these are not the words that are said, but the full question is, tell me about yourself as it relates to me, which really means tell me about yourself as it relates to this company. Tell me about yourself as it relates to this job. So that's the part that's unsaid, which is why it can be confusing for folks, because all they say is tell me about yourself, and you're wondering, what do they really mean? Well, I'm telling you what they really mean. What they really mean is tell me about yourself as is related to what we're talking about right here. So there are three parts to this. And what you want to do is express enthusiasm and some positive feeling about, being in the room in the first place. I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to have this conversation. That's how you open. That is the beginning of tell me about yourself. Because it's clear to me from what I read about the role that you're needing someone who can do A, B, and C. What's A, B, and C, Jewel? Guess what? A, B, and C is written down in the ad. I promise you that. Okay. It's clear that you're needing someone who can do A, B, and C. And I'm so excited about this because that's exactly what I've been doing for the last 5 years when I worked for the Acme Corporation. So that's why I'm really glad that we're talking today so that we can do a deeper dive into this opportunity. That's tell me about yourself. What you did was you demonstrated that you know what the job requires. And I'm also talking about core elements that the job requires. I'm not talking about how the job requires good communication skills and teamwork. Those things are true, but the job really requires, let's say you're looking to be a director of sales. The job really requires that you drive sales revenue and lead new business. That's what I'm talking about. So when you say, I'm really glad that we're having this conversation today because it's clear that you need someone who knows how to come in and lead the team so that we drive new business. And, that's exactly my focus, what my focus has been for the last 5 years when I worked at the Acme Corporation. So that's why I'm really glad that we're doing a deeper dive about this opportunity today. That's what it means to tell them about yourself. Let me just say another thing about that that's important. Notice how I really only talked about one point. Tell me about yourself is not an invitation for this waterfall to come out of your mouth. That's not what they asked you, and that's not what they need to hear. So in your mind, of course, you have a lot of things happening. You have a lot of thoughts. You have a lot of things you could say. But what I would encourage you to do, say one thing and then allow your brain to acknowledge that as complete. One answer is actually complete. If they want to know more, guess what? It's a back and forth conversation. They will ask you more. But for tell me about yourself, and really for any question that they ask you, get away from that need to tell every blessed thing, every single thought that's related to the thought that you just said. One thought is fine, and then you can stop, and it's okay. The reason that it's okay is because the other 10 things are in your mind. That other person has no idea. The other person's not sitting there. They don't know about your life. They're not sitting there saying, well, why didn't she say this? Well, why didn't she say that? They don't know. They have no idea. They don't know if you forgot something. They don't know if you told the time frame slightly wrong. They don't know that you didn't say exactly what you meant to say. Only you know that. The person's only on the receiving end. They don't know that your story has 10 parts. So if you say one part, they think it's the whole thing. So just that takes a bit of a mental shift. That takes some mental massaging on your part. But I definitely would encourage you to begin to think that way because it helps stop that waterfall from coming out of your mouth. All right, I am going to wrap this up. We went a little bit longer than what I had intended. So if you want me to take a look at your resume, let's talk for 15 minutes about where you are. I'm sure I'll be able to drop some insights for you and give you the guidance that you need. And you can take that advice and run with it. So to get me to do that, drop game plan in the comments. My team or I will reach out. We can have that free call. There's nothing for sale. 15-minute game plan call is about getting you the advice that you need to move forward. Drop game plan in the comments. Want you to be able to take all the insights that I give you, implement, and see success in an immediate sense.